Welcome and thank you for tuning in to today's program. Achievement gap. This is an all too familiar term used when speaking about the educational achievements between African American and Caucasian students. Many discussions nationally and on the state level have been held to address this issue, an issue that even today continues to plague our public school systems. In 2004, a group of local citizens came together to create an organization, the African American Teaching Fellows of Charlottesville, Albemarle, that would, quote, recruit, support, develop, and retain a cadre of African American teachers to serve the schools of Charlottesville and Albemarle County. Here today to talk more about the African American Teaching Fellows Program, or AATF as it is widely known, is the Executive Director of AATF, Mr. Rudy Beverley, Brandon Lee, who is an AATF Fellow, and Dr. Hairston, who is the President of the African American Teaching Fellows Organization. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
First of all, I want to say it's a great program that you have here, and I think the community needs to know more about it. Thank you for wanting to put more information out there about it, and I am glad to help to put more information out there about it because it is a great program. Dr. Hairston, this program started in 2004.
Yes.
Okay, tell me, why was there such a need for it? I know we spoke about the achievement gap, but why create a completely separate program to address, or organization rather, to address this issue?
Well, let me just share some background. I started working in Albemarle County around 1992 as an administrator at Western Albemarle High School. And every year we've had the same conversation over and over again. Mm-hmm. How do we recruit and how do we retain teachers in our system, specifically African American teachers? Mm-hmm. It's been a challenge for our school system. I work for Albemarle County Public Schools, as well as the Charlottesville City Public Schools, to master that task. We set aside a lot of resources to make that happen through our Human Resources Office, and we have never been able to reach the goal that we established of bringing in some parity with the percentage of students that we have, the percentage of teachers that we have in the system with the percentage of students that we have in the system.
Okay, and this was 2004 that started, right?
Yes.
So the program's been around for 5 years.
Yes, but actually the idea of the program kind of emerged back around year 2000 with a group of 6, maybe 7 citizens coming together to talk about racism and how they could have an impact on racism. And they had a lot of groups to come together to talk about racism. And from that, they started having some conversations about how racism is impacting education. And this came as a result of talking to students about how they have been successful as students and what caused them to be successful. And a common factor was having a person who looked like them. And the fact that there were so few people who looked like them as African Americans when they matriculated through the system from kindergarten through 12th grade.
And this was both Charlottesville and Albemarle.
Well, this particular group focused on speaking with students, parents, and community representatives primarily from the city of Charlottesville. As a matter of fact, they formed this group called the Beaufort Listening Project, where they went in and interviewed students and parents and community folks and had a certain list of questions that they asked everyone. And you know, the common pattern was we need to do something about bringing more people of color, specifically African Americans, into our schools.
Okay, Rudy, give us a breakdown of the number of African American teachers in the public school systems as it is compared to the number of African American students.
Okay. In the city of Charlottesville, there's about 45% African American students. In the city of Charlottesville, there are 4% minority teachers. In the county, 13.5% are African American students, and then 7% are African American teachers. So as Dr. Hairston was saying, there is a gap in the parity between the students and the teachers.
Okay. Yeah, okay, the city has 45% African-American students, and 4% of those are teachers.
4% of the
Of
teachers
African-
are minority.
Are minority, teachers of color, okay. And Albemarle County is 13.5% minority students or African-American students?
African-American
African-American
students.
students, and 7% are African-American teachers.
That's correct.
Okay. Why such a low number?
Well, I think as Dr. Hairston said, I mean, this has been a challenge for these school systems. And it's not just for these school systems, it's a challenge across the country in finding and retaining African-American teachers in the classroom. Clearly, we know that since integration, there's been greater opportunities for African-Americans in other fields, and certainly the pay in other fields are a lot better than in the teaching profession. So,
Is that why a lot don't come to this
well,
profession?
and certainly in this area, that's one factor. The other is certainly the high cost of living in this area, the fact that it's much more difficult for African Americans to break into education and to move up into, into administration, if you will. So those are some of the challenges that African Americans face, and I think it makes it difficult for them to see education as a career that they will be successful in. And certainly goes back to why AATF was formed. It's the idea behind not just finding, recruiting, and retaining African American teachers, but also making sure that we are providing the professional development so that they'll be as successful as they can be in the classroom.
This is not just an Albemarle County challenge. It's a statewide challenge. It's a national challenge, and because there are so few highly qualified African American teachers who are available, then there's a high level of competition to go out to get the very best of that group, and many of your African American teachers tend to settle in areas where they're more comfortable, such as inner city areas, Norfolk, Richmond, no problem with recruitment of African American teachers.
Right.
However, it's a little bit greater challenge when some folks may come to Albemarle County and may not see opportunities for them that they're accustomed to. Meaning a social life. But then too, you have to establish what your priorities are in terms of working towards a professional environment.
And at least you all have in this community, you're doing something to address that concern out there. I mean, you could have just left this in the hands of the school system. Granted, they do their part to try to recruit and retain African American teachers, but this organization was formed to specifically, address that need and do something about it. So I think that's admirable.
Well, I'll use a language that's a little bit stronger than just address the need, but to support our two school divisions. We've had really strong superintendents and school boards who understand that there's a need to attract people of color, and they understand how that can impact student achievement. So this organization has been well received by the community, the education community, in terms of embracing our mission of supporting their goals. Charlottesville City and Albemarle County both have goals of recruiting and retaining minority applicants, minority teachers.
Okay, Brandon, you are a teacher at Jack Jewett Middle School, correct?
Correct.
Okay, what grade do you teach there?
I teach 6th through 8th grade.
You teach all the grades, okay.
Correct.
Okay, you've been affiliated with AATF for how long now?
2 years.
2 years. All right, tell me why you chose to become a teacher.
Well, in thinking about my background post-college, I ended up in a situation like a lot of college students my age, not sure what career I would pick and what direction I would take my education. However, in reflecting on my upbringing, I thought about my parents, my father an educator, my mother also an educator through dance and oral interpretation. My grandmother, who practically raised me, also worked in the school system as a bus driver in the cafeteria, and the list goes on really throughout the family. So as an interest in thinking about the gaps in my own education, growing up in a situation that something like or similar to a lot of the demographics that are here in Charlottesville, I looked at the community and tried to do what my father would say, stick my neck out there, and I started substitute teaching, and I liked it a lot and related to some of the students, some not so much, like the high school level, because I think because of the age difference. But now I see that my interest was definitely well served, being that I'm liking the career and I'm liking learning as well.
Right. Well, I'm going to read a quote that Dave Norris has. You all have this on your website, the African American Teaching Fellows website at www.aateachingfellows.org. And it says, I thought it was a really good quote. He said, there are few jobs in this world that are more important than that of a teacher's. We all had teachers who inspired us, molded us, helped to make us who we are today. And earlier I was sharing with you all that some years ago when and oftentimes even today when I think about those teachers that impacted my life, there are 5 that come to mind. 2 were white from elementary school, and 3 of the African American ones were from high school as I got older. So I want to ask you this, Brandon, how do you see yourself making a difference in the lives of your students, all your students, but particularly in the lives of those who are African American?
Well, in observation of your reflection, thinking about those people who were there, who resembled you, and being that positive role model for the student, helping them reach a level to where they're comfortable with themselves so they can move out and see a way to motivate others as well. I think then I'll be able to see whether my actions have had an effect upon them.
Mm-hmm.
May I
Yeah,
follow up?
Please.
I'm going to kind of relate to Brandon here. I was at your school approximately a month ago, maybe 3 weeks, and what I observed was a real positive interaction with you and a group of African American students. I'm not quite sure what was going on, but there were about 10, maybe 15 students in his classroom, and they were doing something that was organized, and it was very clear that they were doing it because they were connected to him. Mm-hmm. What was going on?
I have a group, a step group there, and we were actually doing some team building things and trying to work together, trying to get that idea that we're one and we're only going to move forward if we're all on one accord, and just doing some step activities. You know, the students try to have me participate just as much as they are. So,
But I saw a lot of leadership going on between you and the students, and also saw some leadership skills being developed by those students because that camaraderie that was there, that was being built with the students as well with you as a teacher.
Well, I definitely I agree, and I think that is more of what's been cultivated as a result of time there in that setting. You're right. Though there's some students now who are taking those steps forward, trying to be the leader, and what I'm seeing is almost something like what you see in the movie Major Payne, if anybody remembers it. You kind of
So you Major Payne?
Setting them up in situations where somebody will emerge, somebody will take over because your neck's going to be on the line. Let them see that.
Rudy, tell me, how do you go about finding fellows like Brandon?
Well, I think it starts with having a good program format, and certainly AATF starts there. It's also because there are many people in this community who see the importance of this, so they're recruiting. It starts with African American teachers who are in the field, who have been